Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this whole video, we're not just looking at one bad boy, we're looking at two. Though they worked as a duo, so I guess that kind of, counts as one. The Speed Freak Killers, ladies and gentlemen. That name, it's kind of badass. It's like if, Walt and Jesse decided to become serial killers instead of, we gotta cook, we gotta murder. Together, the two lads have been convicted of 4 murders, from the 80s to the 90s in California. But take that number and multiply it by about 20, and you're probably closer to the truth. In the years since they were both apprehended, many bones have been found linked to the crimes of Wesley Shermantine and Loren Herzog, and the case, it's still open to this day, if you can believe it. So, let's look at what happened. Loren Herzog was born in December 1965, Wesley Shermantine a little over 2 months later in February 1966. They grew up together, were best buds, and would do just about everything together, including the things that got them their moniker: speed and killing. They grew up in the small town of Linden, not far from San Francisco, growing up in a neighborhood that didn't have many other children, so the two quickly did everything together, became bound together. The two spent their childhood exploring the area around San Joaquin County, often going on hunting and fishing trips together. And it was their addiction to meth that really led to their spree, beginning in 1984 when they would have been about 18-19 years old, and continuing to 1998. The story of the Speed Freak Killers really begins in 1984, with what happened to 16-year-old Chevelle Wheeler in the town of Stockton, which is only 20 minutes away from Linden. On October 7th of 1985, Chevelle Wheeler was dropped off at Franklin High School in Stockton by her mother for a usual day at school. However, it wouldn't be so usual. Instead of heading to class, Chevy mitched off from school and went to hang out with Wesley Shermantine. And that was the last time Chevy was ever seen. Police looked into Wesley as a person of interest, getting a search warrant for his hunting cabin. Inside, they found blood that matched Chevy's type, but a lack of other physical evidence led the police to not arrest him. The case of what happened to Chevelle Wheeler would go cold until much later. Fast forward 14 years. On November 13th, 1998, 25-year-old Cindy Vanderheiden disappeared. That night, she was seen out in 2 bars in downtown Linden, both of them owned by her parents, and she just so happened to be with, take a guess, Loren and Wesley. Cindy already knew Loren Herzog, as Loren had had a brief affair with Cindy's older sister, Kim Vanderheiden. In the early morning hours of November 14th, Cindy drove home to her parents' house, but was never seen again. In the early hours of that morning, her parents heard her car pull up into the driveway and were like, "Oh, grand, she's home. Let's go back to sleep." However, when they got up the next morning, her car was no longer there, and they had no idea where Cindy was. She had never actually entered the house. Some calls were made, asking around town if anybody's seen her, knew where she was. Her dad drove around town having a go, see if he could find her, and he couldn't. Cindy's car was found the next day at a nearby cemetery. Inside her car, the police found money, her cell phone, purse, and foul play was suspected. There was no sign of a fight in the car, but it's believed something bad happened to her in that cemetery. The surrounding areas were searched, but nothing of Cindy's was ever found. It was like she just vanished, and it would remain that way for quite a long time. As the gruesome twosome, Wesley and Loren were the last 2 people seen with her, they quickly became people of interest. They were known to be suspicious lads around town, one of them having been a suspect in the Chevelle Wheeler disappearance. And when Wesley's car was searched, blood was found inside. The pair were also known to have spent a lot of time exploring the hills and mine shafts in the surrounding countryside. These areas were also searched, but nothing. A week after Cindy's disappearance, Loren, get in.
At some point, depending on some things here, you might have to make a real hard decision between your wife and your family and yourself and your life and your old friend, Wes Shermantine.
There's no hard decision there at all.
Okay, and
I've already told you that. I mean, my family's more important than anything in the world to me.
right. But I also sense in
That's
you,
what it is.
Loren, that you're a good friend, and that unless we hold your fins to the fire, you're not going to give up Wes unless you're absolutely forced to.
Give him up what? I mean,
Well, I've already told you the what. The what that's bothering us is that we have a young woman who was seen talking with you guys, and we have a chunk of time that's unaccounted for. I mean, you're not unintelligent, Loren. You can see, you know what the problem is.
well, yeah, I can understand that, but like you said, you've got other people that said the same thing I said about one after the bar.
Witnesses tell us that you, Cindy, and Wes are huddled up at the end of that bar.
I don't remember being in any hell with anybody.
All right, but you guys are talking for not just a minute, not just a couple of minutes, but for an extended period of time.
I can't recall that. I mean, I can't picture that at all. All three of us might have been talking at one time, but I can't see us at the end of the bar. I mean, that just wasn't there.
What do you think happened to Cindy, Loren?
I really don't know. I thought about it, I don't know.
I mean, I assume that even though you and Christine have had your ups and downs, she is the mother of your children, I assume.
Oh, yeah.
And she's, by all appearances, keeps a good home for you and takes good care of your kids.
Took up a lot of my I'll tell you that.
Okay. What if it were Christine that we were talking about tonight? Okay.
I remember you said that before, and I was like, geez,
I know this isn't Christine we're talking about,
maybe, I don't know what I did.
but your mom and dad, I know how your mom would feel.
Yeah, I know that Cindy's parents must be.
They're devastated. They are inconsolable.
I try to think about it because I mean, it'd be like, I'd be getting in there with them. You know, it'd be rough.
And it never goes away.
I know, I've lost a lot of people.
They pretty much know that we're only going to find a body. They pretty much know that by now.
I mean, that's a hard way to think.
Yeah, but you know what?
I mean, you gotta think positive.
No, there's no thinking positive about this. That the relationship between Cindy and her family was so close that there's no way that she's voluntarily gone, okay? And they pretty much resigned themselves to the fact that all they're looking for now is her body. But you know what? They need that. Because without that,
Yeah, they give up.
come right down to push and shove. Would Wes choose, if Wes needed to cover himself, he'd give you up in a heartbeat. You know he would. You grew up with Wes, and you've known the good. There is good about him, but there is bad about him too. I've met him on both sides. I've seen him in both. That's true, but some folks have got some pretty bad. But their bad side is pretty bad. You ever think that Wes would be capable of forcing a girl to have sex with him?
I don't know. Probably. Maybe not. But
Do you know anything about the disappearance of Cindy Vanderheiden?
no.
Okay. Do you suspect that anyone is involved in her disappearance? Is there anyone that you suspect is involved in the disappearance of Cindy Vanderheiden?
The two lads, the gruesome twosome as I will call them, were well known around Linden as, good buddy junkies who frequented the bars and shithole places around that area. And so, the police knowing this, they hoped to use one to get the other. That's why when they found blood in Wesley's car, they went to Loren. Wesley was also a bit sharper, a bit smarter than Loren, a bit more savvy. Loren was a bit of a follower, and also a bit of a fucking idiot. And it worked. Loren Herzog confessed to a lot. And I mean, like, a lot. He told the police he witnessed Wesley kill 5 people, but that Wesley actually killed 24 people, Cindy being one of them. A hunter Wesley shot while on vacation in Utah, a man named Henry Howell, who was found in his car with his head bashed to shit. Howard King and Paul Kavanagh, 2 men found shot to death inside their cars. Robin Armtrout, who was found naked and stabbed to death. Her case remained unsolved until Loren told what he told. As had all the other cases Loren had so much information on, and was able to pin on Wesley Shermantine. Though, of course, Wesley at the same time, and in the months that followed, would say the exact same thing about Loren. Have you talked to him yet? It was believed that Wesley was the leader of the two, and Loren, he was ready to give up Wesley, and he actually expected, after telling all this to the detectives, alright lads, that's enough, you got all the stuff there on Wesley, I'll catch you later, gonna go home to the wife and kids. Yeah, he was not a bright spark, if he thought he could go home free as a bird after telling the police all that, but then again, his brain was probably mush from meth. Those interviews would go on for months.
Loren, you have today, because I have drug you in here, kicking and screaming, you have an opportunity to separate yourself from Wes Shermantine. Wes is going to go with or without you. And today is the time and the place for you to decide which it's going to be.
Well, I ain't going. I've done nothing. He ain't going with me. He ain't taking me with him.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I ain't done nothing to be going for.
Loren, I sure hope you're telling me the truth, because I see you as an opportunity to do something that we probably will not have an opportunity to do unless we get lucky, and that's get Cindy's body back, because Wes will never.
I can't help you there. I don't know.
Okay.
If I swear, I told the other guy this. If I knew this is the truth, I would have told somebody. Then they came up with 20,000. Hell, I could use 20,000. I turned West and say whatever. But if I knew her, if I knew where she was, I'd tell her.
Help me. That's all I'm asking is help. Put it right here. What did Wes tell you about the Chevelle Wheeler case back there? That he buried a body on his parents' property?
There's a lot of things in this investigation that we have come to understand through statements and through physical evidence that we feel that there's more than sufficient enough cause to be able to arrest you. And we could arrest you right now.
Really?
Okay?
Yeah.
All right? That's not a pretend statement. That's not a phony statement. The thing is that the district attorney has asked us to go ahead and wait until all the results of the blood that was recovered in Wes Shermantine's car to be totally analyzed. And we're abiding by that at this point in time because it was recommended. Okay? Cindy Vanderheiden has been missing for quite some time. And you've spoken with Detective Shuffle, you've spoken with a few other people, and have provided several different statements. Some of which we know to be true, and some of it we know not to be true. Do you know where Cindy is?
Not sure.
Do you have any idea?
I've tried to come up with it. I can't.
Wes is making comments about you.
Yeah.
Things such as, Loren and I have hunted just about everything, including the ultimate game. You know what that ultimate game is.
There is no ultimate game for him.
He's implicating you. What I foresee here is that when we haul Wes in here, he's going to pin it on. You tell me, what are the possibilities of Cindy's blood being in your trunk?
I don't know that it is Cindy's blood.
We're telling you, it's 169 million to 1.
And I don't know how it got in there.
It's your car.
Yes, it is.
You have to make a decision in your own head to decide whether or not you really want to come forth with whatever happened if you're not responsible. If you're responsible, you know what? You know, you know what I'm saying?
If I had something to do with Cindy's disappearance, I would have been gone a long time ago.
Are you afraid of anybody out there, somebody threatening you?
No?
If you lied in the past, I don't care about the lies. I want the truth of what happened that night. There's blood in your car. There's a simple explanation. He knows it. I know it. It's there. Take the opportunity.
Oh, my Lord, President.
Okay.
In March 1999, they were both arrested and charged with multiple counts of murder. In 2001, Wesley Shermantine's trial for the murders of Cindy Vanderheiden, Chevelle Wheeler, and others would begin. Loren took the stand against Wesley and told how the night of November 13th, 1998, him, Cindy, and Wesley snorted meth together in the cemetery, then drove to a deserted road where Wesley raped Cindy before slitting her throat and burning her body. Loren said he merely watched from the backseat, even after Cindy asked him for help. Wesley was found guilty of the murder of Cindy, Chevy, and also Howard King and Paul Kavanagh. Throughout, Wesley maintained he didn't do anything, and he blamed Loren for all of these disappearances, because of course he did. Wesley Shermantine was sentenced to death. Now, once Wesley was sentenced to death, the families of both Chevelle Wheeler and Cindy Vanderheiden hoped to use that as leverage to get him to tell them where the bodies are. The bodies hadn't been found yet. And so they were like, maybe we can get your sentence reduced to just life in prison. Just tell us where our daughters can be found. And he said no. In August 2001, Loren himself stood trial for the same murders. Loren Herzog was found guilty and sentenced to 78 years. Throughout this, both Wesley and Loren blamed the other, and no bodies were found. Now, a few months later, Wesley said, the ball's on him for this one. He said, you know what, I will tell you where Cindy Vanderheiden, she can be found, where her body is, but heard there was a $20,000 reward, for information leading to her. Give me a bit of that, and I'll tell you where she is. The family refused. You don't negotiate with terrorists or shitheads. Fast forward a couple more years. In 2004, the State of Appeals overturns Loren Herzog's convictions, on the grounds that his confessions were coerced, that the police ignored Loren's rights to remain silent, deprived him of food and sleep, and delayed his arraignment. A retrial was ordered, but never took place. Instead, a plea agreement was reached, voluntary manslaughter on the Cindy Vanderheiden case, and for providing drugs for her, and also to an accessory to the other murders. Loren Herzog was granted parole in 2010, if you can believe it. Now obviously this caused a bit of a shitstorm, a great uproar. Nobody wanted him released, walking the same streets where these people were disappeared, brutally murdered. So, nobody wanted him, no county wanted him, so what the prison system did was put him in a trailer, more or less right outside the prison he had just been released from. This way they could keep a sharp eye on him. And around this time, Wesley Shermantine, hearing about his murder buddy being released while he sat on death row, he finally started to talk. A bounty hunter named of Leonard Padilla started talking with Wesley to get him to release locations of the bodies. In, of course, because Wesley is such a greedy bitch, return for $33,000. He would draw maps and tell them where bodies could be found, and Loren, learning of this, maybe he didn't want to go back to prison. Maybe he didn't want to face new charges, a whole slew of new charges. And when the authorities found what they're going to find, it's very likely he would have.
A KCRA3 exclusive, we have just uncovered new information. The convicted killer, Loren Herzog, is dead. He is one of 2 men convicted in the killing of a San Joaquin County woman whose body has never been found.
And KCRA3's Mike DeSalle is live in Clements, where that young woman was from. Mike, what can you tell us today?
Well, I can tell you this all started with an anonymous phone call early this morning to KCRA3. That caller claiming that Herzog hung himself in Susanville. Now, the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation confirms that Loren Herzog was found dead. This is him in court several years ago. He is one of 2 men who were convicted in the killing of Cindy Vanderheiden back in 1998. Her body has never been found. Cindy Vanderheiden's mother reacted to the news by saying, quote, "Wow. Thank God. He should have been dead in the first place. That's one less person I have to think about. I just hope he left a note where our daughter's body is."
In 2012, Loren hanged himself inside his trailer home. Just hours after learning that Wesley was going to spill the beans on everything they had been up to over the years and start pinpointing graves. An autopsy of Loren was performed. And in the report, the various tattoos found on his body were described. Much of his skin was covered in satanic images and skulls and flames and that kind of shit. Running down the length of his left leg were the words "made and fueled by hate and restrained by reality." And on his right foot was a tattoo that read, "The devil made me do it."
And be honest with me. If it won't, then just say no. But yes or no. If we are successful in taking him to jail and charging him with murder, will that change anything for you as far as Wes's power over you? Or will it go with him wherever he goes? Will he always have the power to reach out and keep you silent?
Wesley started writing letters, drawing maps to where bones could be found. What he called, as always, he was blaming all of this on Loren, Herzog's boneyard. These would be abandoned wells, mine shafts, and remote hillsides. The police would search property owned by the Shermantine family.
Well, we are live here on Leonard and Morrow Road. This is a remote area of Calaveras County that sheriff's investigators have been searching. Now, right over here, the sheriff's investigators have removed their roadblock for the first time. This road is the road that leads you to the former Shermantine property, and it's where Shermantine himself says more murder victims are located.
Not much came of it, but the digging continued. The police followed up on all the locations and maps Wesley made in various locations, and the remains of Cindy Vanderheiden and Chevelle Wheeler were finally found. And not just them. During their digs, the police eventually found over 1,000 bone fragments inside a well, alongside clothing, purses, and jewellery. Another location dug up 3 more bodies: 19-year-old Kimberly Billy, an unidentified victim, and 16-year-old Joanne Hobson. Both named girls had been missing since the mid-80s. Wesley was actually released, very briefly, from prison in September 2012, so he could personally lead police to where he said more victims could be found. And after that, he declined to speak to the authorities, the police, any further. He was donezo. Though, I'm sure a bit of kiboshta could change his mind. There were allegations that the investigation into finding further bodies was hampered by the San Joaquin Sheriff's Office. Files deleted, dig sites done the wrong way leading to mangled bones which prevented further identification. One FBI agent said they gave more respect to dinosaurs than they did to those victims.
When a killer makes a map and says, here's where the bodies are, that's like gold to law enforcement.
That's what I would believe.
Wesley Shermantine drew these maps from his prison cell, showing the locations of victims. He sent them to several people, including California State Senator Kathleen Galgiani. After the San Joaquin Sheriff's Department and FBI found 5 bodies, they stopped searching in 2013, citing Shermantine's refusal to talk to them and the reliability of his information.
He has not given me reason to not believe what he's saying. However, the Sheriff's Department has given me reason to distrust information coming forward.
CBS News obtained these emails showing that in 2010, someone from the San Joaquin Sheriff's Department ordered at least 5 cases involving victims of the speed freak killers canceled, requesting their removal from the national database of missing persons, even though their bodies had never been found. Jeff Reineck is a former FBI agent.
Is it rare for cases to be deleted off of this database?
I have never heard of any active missing persons case being deleted from a state or federal database.
You believe someone's trying to cover something up?
Yes. Law enforcement is supposed to serve and protect, not remove and destroy.
They finally stopped digging in 2013. But as recently as 2018, the case has been reopened. And as recently as March 2020, it is thought more bones relating to the speed freak killers' crimes may have been found. How many victims the speed freak killers had is unknown. The only person who truly knows is Wesley Shermantine, who is sitting still to this day on death row. In one letter he wrote to a reporter back in 2012, he said the number of victims was 24 times 3, which is quite a lot of victims. Even though still to this day he maintains Loren Herzog did it all. You know, we often look at motive, like what would drive somebody to do these horrific things that this gruesome twosome, the speed freak killers, did. Why would they do that? And in this case, there is no motive at all. They just enjoyed doing it. They just enjoyed hunting people. They didn't care. They would kidnap you and kill you later, or just shoot you as you sat in your car. It was all a game to them. Loren Herzog, well, good for him, because he died doing what he loved, killing. Wesley will get the other end of what he and his friend did to many people over many years. And that's the story of the speed freak killers. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you. I will see you as always real soon in the next one. Take care of yourselves. Mike out.